Hello, I'm DG-Ice, and this deck is Rayeels Unlimited, which stands for Rayquaza-Electric. A lot of people are testing this deck as a top contender for Unlimited because it's been one of the top decks in the Black and White On extended format for a long time. Rayquaza-Ex has an attack called Dragon Burst, which costs a fire energy and electric energy. It states, discard all fire or electric energies and deal 60 damage times the number of energies discarded. This works out nicely because Eelektrik has an ability called Tynamo, which allows you to attach one electric energy per turn to a benched Pokemon. So you attack with Rayquaza-Ex, knock out whatever Pokemon they have by discarding 3 electric energies, then get it back on the bench and reattach those same 3 energies by using 3 Eelektriks. Then you just get it back in the active position and knock out their next Pokemon. First I thought I was going to somehow use Sky Arrow Bridge and switches to retreat my Rayquaza-Ex because it has a 1 energy retreat cost, but that turns out to be way too much work. All you gotta do is get a Keldeo-Ex and attach a float stone just like everybody else, and you got your perfect switch-ins every turn. The next question is, how are you going to get all these Pokemon on the bench? My answer was to play Pokemon Collector and 2 Jirachi-Exes to get those collectors. I also play 2 Ultra Balls and 2 Level Balls, which not only help me get the right Pokemon on the bench, they also help me search for Jirachi-Ex, so that way I can get my Pokemon collectors. Some players use Pichu, which has an attack called Playground, which allows both players to search out any number of basic Pokemon from their deck and put them on their bench. The first problem with Pichu is that they changed the rule, so now you can't attack on the first turn. It was really good when you could attack on the first turn and set up before you had a bunch of energies in play and stuff. But now that you can't attack on the first turn, you kind of get stuck waiting there even when you do have it. Due to its low 30 HP, Pichu is an easy prize card for anything that can apply damage to the bench, like Darkrai-EX or a Dusknoir to move damage around. Jirachi-Ex suffers a similar drawback of being a juicy target, giving out 2 prize cards for only 90 HP. But the 90 HP is relevant because it won't die to bench damage as easily as the 30 HP Pichu might. Which means to knock it out, they're going to have to use something like Lysandre. In the early game, they really need to be worried more about your Rayquaza-Ex, your Keldeo-Ex, or your Eelektriks. Knocking out a Jirachi-Ex isn't going to do much. Jirachi-Ex was just taking up space on your bench. On the other hand, during the late game, they might not need as many resources to deal the 90 damage to Jirachi-Ex, so they might be able to pick it off with a Lysandre for the last 2 prize cards, and that would be a really strong play. But other than that, Jirachi-Ex doesn't actually lose you too much value because your opponent should be able to knock out any of your EXs in Unlimited. If they're not, then they're just not a strong deck. They're not a strong opponent, and you don't really need to worry about them. Alright, so we've got the basics of the deck down, but now we got to figure out how we want to deal with problems like Garbodor and Pyroar and Suicune. So the first step is we're definitely playing 2 startling megaphones. We just need them to be able to deal with Garbodors. We definitely don't want to have them prized and not be able to search them out when we need them. And then we also want to play 2 Lysandres. We don't play a Raikou in this deck, so it's definitely good to have that reach, and we definitely want access to them again. And being able to use 2 of them is also great. And we can also search it out with Jirachi, so that's awesome. We still need a way to beat Pyroar, and the best answer is probably Plasma Eelektross, because it only takes 1 card and doesn't require to leave a space open on the bench. So let's compare Eelektros to the other Pokemon you could use in this slot. The first one being the small Rayquaza that's got 120 HP and it has an attack called Shred that deals 90 damage that isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's Pokemon. So having access to Shred is actually pretty cool, but you have to attach a Muscle Band to deal the extra 20 damage to knock out a Pyroar in one hit. The other option is Lantern Prime, which has an attack that does 40 damage plus 10 damage more for each energy attached to all of your Pokemon. It also has a cool ability called Underwater Dive, which lets you change it from an electric type to a water type, which is really fun to use against fire types and whatnot. The problem with both of these is that they're hard to assemble because they both require you to get 2 singleton cards out of your deck. The odds of one of them being prized is just too high to risk. The other problem is that they both require you to leave an empty space on your bench, which can be tough because you want at least 3 Eelektrik, and then you want at least 1 Rayquaza-Ex and 1 Keldeo-Ex, so that's 5, and you probably had to use a Jirachi-Ex at some point, so that's 6 Pokemon already. Not to mention, if you didn't have to use a Jirachi-Ex, you probably still wanted to play out a second Rayquaza-Ex or Keldeo-Ex. For the rest of the video, I'm going to be commentating on the match that I'm currently playing. During this game, we were able to set up on the second turn. You probably shouldn't expect to set up on the second turn every time. The third turn is much more likely. Since we set up so quickly, we were able to take out each of their attackers as they powered them up, really just letting us steamroll through our opponent. The other thing we can think about during these games is how Rayquaza-Ex interacts with Mewtwo-Ex and Yveltal-Ex. Because it discards down to 1 energy when it attacks, Rayquaza-Ex will probably only take around 60 or 80 damage on the attack back from a Mewtwo-Ex or an Yveltal-Ex. That situation comes up enough that I'd actually consider it an advantage to be discarding the energy. Here I computer search for Lysandre because I wanted to get rid of his last attacker. At this point our victory is imminent. We can attack with our Eelektrik if we need to knock out his last Pokemon. Here we see yet another strength of this deck. We get N down to 1. But since all of our Eelektrik are already in play, and so is our Keldeo-Ex, we don't need any cards from our hand. I hope this video has been informative. The next deck in this playlist is Celebi Genesect, which is my personal pick for strongest deck in Unlimited.